Greetings, friends. Another What's Right Show emergency broadcast from the road. I hope to be back Wednesday night. So Thursday, we will have our first back to the original full program on News Talk 840 KXNT. The station is starting to get slightly irritated with me with my long absence. Look, folks, it's Thanksgiving vacation. I took a few extra days. Don't get mad at me. In the meantime, those of you in the know are getting these small updates, which I'm trying to do every day. In fact, I even did one on Thanksgiving Day. So you're following along both on X and on wherever you get your podcast. The What's Right Show on the go has been there for your listening pleasure. Now, I want to, obviously the big story here is the Hunter Biden pardon. Right as soon as I read this last night, first off, my off-the-cuff reaction to this is one of very little surprise. This was always going to happen. Then again, I never had any illusions about Joe Biden's moral clarity. I mean, the guy lies about everything. Why would he not lie about this? Now, a lot of folks out there, particularly on the left, are hand-wringing. The reactions I saw, a lot of them, the initial ones, Robbie, I don't know what your thoughts were on this, but it was very, there's a lot of disappointment last night. There's a lot of disappointment today. Then there's, of course, the predictable reactions along the lines of, yeah, and he should pardon other people too. And we'll get to that here in a moment. To me, the real story is the text of the pardon. And incidentally, I saw the initial text very quickly on X, on Twitter. This is one of the great miracles that is Twitter. You see stuff there. Quickly, and you see the original primary source documents. And then I couldn't find the post. I had somebody had put up the actual text of the pardon, and which is the legal document by which a president pardons an individual. And the language, again, I'm a lawyer, so I look at the language. For me, the language of the pardon is very important. The statement, you can wipe your rear with the statement. The statement doesn't matter. The statement is just Biden's official explanation for why he did it. And the statement, incidentally, we'll get to that too. Those are all lies as well. But I want to go to the text of the pardon. So I look at the pardon and I scan through it. I say, oh my gosh, it covers 11 years of known and unknown criminal conduct. And here it is. I'll read it to you exactly. A full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States, meaning federal crimes. This is the only type of crime that the president is able to pardon or commute, for which he has, speaking of Hunter Biden, has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, December 1st being yesterday. So I guess, Hunter, if he commits a crime today, a federal crime today, he's not off the hook, but Joe basically pardoned him for, almost 11 years. January through the end of 14 through almost the end of 2024. I mean, it's rounding up 11 years. Now, that part smacked me in the face. And it smacked me in the face because, very important, if this was just about taxes and about guns, taxes, 6 years, folks, is the statute of limitations. 6 years. Why did Joe Biden go back 11? And it's because 2014 was the year that Joe Biden became the all things Ukraine czar for a guy named Barack Obama. And it was around this time that Rosemont Seneca Partners came on the scene. You've got, Hunter and his buddy there who created a shell corporation, an LLC, to go through and start shaking people down, okay, who had business before the United States in Ukraine, collecting over $20 million, which they didn't pay any taxes on, and funneled to every member of the Biden family, including Joe himself, his grandkids, his brother. You know the story. So this is a cleanup, and it was always going to happen. I never had any doubt that it would. But at this point, we need to, and I think that the left particularly is grappling with this, but we need to dispense with any illusions that Biden didn't know about what Hunter was doing, that he isn't knee-deep in it, wasn't knee-deep in it from the beginning, wasn't covering all these years for it. And it is a great shame, I would say this, a great shame for Donald Trump that in the 4 years that he was president, from 2017 to 2021, that he didn't do anything about it. He tried to get some scoop on it, with the phone call that ultimately, by the way, led to Trump's impeachment, which is kind of funny because Trump, I guess, was impeached for trying to discover and uncover the crimes that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden were engaged in that now Hunter has been legally absolved of. So there's some layers to this that are, I guess, a little bemusing. But again, none of this is a particular surprise. This is not, a father concerned for his son. Absolutely not the situation. This is 100% Joe Biden worried, knowing, and the family around him, family members who themselves are worried, that this could end up having an impact on them. Now, one thing you're not going to find, and Robbie, you sent me that AP link, and this is the statement, right? This is one of the many stories last night that was circulating around the internet, and I went looking for these, and I may have sent this one to you or another one, just so we would have it for our show prep today. But the point is, I went around and I looked, and everywhere, every major news site, including, by the way, Fox News, go through and give us just the statement. Nobody got into the text of the pardon. Now, who gives a rat's rear end about the statement? By the way, today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere, blah, blah, blah. I kept my word, even as I've watched my son being selectively and unfairly politically prosecuted without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon. As a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought on trial for felony gun charges. Really? Okay. This goes on and on, right? It's the justification. It is the statement that some lackey put together to try to smear some veneer of respectability on an absolutely disastrous and humiliating political U-turn. So he goes through, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion that Hunter was singled out. Okay, so the whole statement, if you look at it, talks about the two cases where Hunter was convicted. The gun case and the federal tax evasion charges. This is the case in Delaware and the case out in California. Two convictions with sentencing upcoming. If it was just what the statement says, if Joe Biden really was concerned with the fact that his son was unfairly targeted in these two cases, he could have either A, commuted his sentence to 0, okay? And this is ultimately what, if you'll recall, George Bush did with Scooter Libby, okay, who was the chief of staff to Dick Cheney. That was a big fiasco there at the end of the Bush term. One of the most silly and terrible things that George W. Bush did, that he didn't give Scooter Libby a full pardon, something that Trump himself cleaned up later, a separate issue. He could have commuted the sentences. Okay, enough is enough. I respect the Department of Justice. I'm commuting this. He could have pardoned him for these two crimes. But no, he went further back than these two crimes. He went back 11 years. He went back to the time that Hunter first established himself as the bagman for the Biden crime family operation. Biden and everybody around him, and frankly, every Democrat that carried water for these losers, lost in an instant all credibility. And that's what this thing is really about. So, Politico, by the way, Politico, they called Joe Biden's parting insult. They're mad, of course, that now Biden has taken away their ability to make these types of accusations, partiality and abuse of power and all that against Trump. So they're furious about this. This is a column that came out today, Alexander Burns. Joe Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter almost looks like a fiendish prank on Washington, a Sunday night ambush designed to embarrass and shock. It was probably not Biden's aim. The piece continues, but however unintentionally, the pardon is a kind of sabotage. You see, the way they see this is that now when Trump comes in and says, hey, we've got to reform the whole system, this whole thing is a mess, Biden has given Trump some cover, but Biden doesn't give a rat's rep about any of this. He doesn't care that he's doing that. All he cares about is that he is protecting his son. Now, unwittingly, he's created a small, slight little problem. Now, let me tell you what that is. When you give somebody a blanket pardon, you take away some of their constitutional rights. Now, you're probably looking at me going, Sam, what are you talking about? What do you mean taking away their constitutional right? Well, you take away their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Now, this is precisely why federal prosecutors, local prosecutors, any law enforcement official looking to get testimony from a witness who may have some criminal liability themselves, first thing that they'll do after careful negotiation back and forth is to give that key witness, if they really need what that witness has, if they need that witness to testify, they will give that witness blanket immunity. They will sign an agreement with that witness who may themselves have significant criminal liability for the conduct that they're going to describe. They will give him or her immunity so that when that witness gets up on the stand, puts his hand on the Bible, swears to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, the prosecutor comes in and says, all right, Sam, tell us, what did Robbie do in the break room? Tell us everything. And I'm on the stand, right? And I can't say, well, I'm not going to talk because I participated in the crime and I potentially have criminal liability. So I'm going to plead the fifth. You can't do that. See? But Hunter won't have that defense. It's a real head scratcher. And I say this because if Trump's DOJ decides to go after Joe Biden's brother, this guy is, I don't want to be rude here, but he is balls deep in this mess. Okay. He is absolutely steeped in criminality for his role in this, in this pay to play operation that they ran here. Think of the other family members who benefited directly and indirectly from the money, who knowingly took cash, by the way, tax-free, okay? All these folks have, and well, Biden will claim he has presidential immunity. That may or may not be the case. Regardless, they can call Hunter now, and Hunter can testify. And even if they don't have a criminal case, now Hunter can appear before Congress, and he'll have to sing like a canary or be brought up on federal contempt charges, or be arrested again for failing to comply with a congressional subpoena. So it's not the end of anything. I think it's just the beginning. And I think the whole thing was an absolute miscalculation on Biden's part. I think he overshot it. And as I understand it, and even Politico confirms this, there was a big conversation about this issue at Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know how your Thanksgiving was, but if your name was Biden, first name Hunter or Joe, the topic of Thanksgiving dinner over the weekend, all weekend, was this pardon. And as my source tells me that apparently, basically Hunter sat his dad down and said, I'm going to write a tell-all book. I'm just going to lay it all out there. And Biden had no choice but to say, oh, okay, I'll give you the pardon. Just enough is enough. Like, let's let it go. But I think the more of the story is, or the more developed version of the story is, Biden recognizes his own liability and looking to shore it up. And if he's smart, more family members will get pardons in the coming weeks. That is my prediction. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. Quick break here. The What's Right show on the go will continue after this.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, Sam Mirejovsky, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, yes, the show does not sound like it normally does. It's not as long as it normally is, but it's just as insightful, just as enriching and entertaining as it, I believe, is from our downtown Las Vegas studios. I am on the go, which is why we're having this abbreviated format. Those of you used to listening to me live on the radio, I am sorry to disappoint you. So today, tomorrow, and Wednesday are the last days of this on-the-go programming. Thursday will resume back to our usual setup. Now, I'll tell you, one of the great things, by the way, if you're listening on the podcast, a little reminder, you can actually see me on Twitter, on the X app. Okay, so we post this on the @What'sRightShow account. And you've got the whole show right there. You can listen to it at your convenience. Of course, Spotify. We have video on Spotify as well, and audio on Apple Podcasts, just to name a few of the platforms you can use to follow this program. Now, mentioned just before the break here, the reactions, the media reactions. A lot of libs out there thought this was a great thing. For example, Keith Olbermann had perhaps my favorite tweet on the subject. He wrote, "Pardon Hunter, ? Great. Now pardon everybody else. This is Keith Olbermann. Quote, okay, every prosecutor, every Biden administration staffer, every media figure, everybody Trump will persecute. 10 million pardons, period, at least." People on the internet pointing out that Keith Olbermann seems to be admitting that there are over 10 million criminals in Washington, D.C. Olbermann's never been one to connect the dots, to be perfectly blunt, so not surprised he stepped into that one. A lot of people out there disappointed. Nate Silver was practically in tears. Nate Silver, the guy who was covering for Kamala Harris in the polls, really absolutely just shambolic, Democratic hack. And absolutely, I'll tell you this, just yeah, he was beside himself. I don't have the tweet here, but he was very sad about it. Now, I want to point out one thing here, that everybody that is saying that Hunter Biden is this, he was going through something. His father is compassionate with his son going through, substance abuse issues. Catherine Herridge, who's one of the point reporters who was at CBS News, a top investigative journalist, Catherine Herridge, sat down with Gary Shipley. He was one of the whistleblowers. The other one that she had also was Joseph Ziegler. And this was back in October. She sat with them and she's talking to them about, these are the two IRS guys who came out and said the whole IRS investigation was slow walked. There was nothing but incompetence, right? They just, deliberate obstruction by their bosses to slow down the case against Hunter Biden. And she sits them down and asks about the greatest misconception that the public might have about this case. And it goes to the heart of this thing that I'm seeing a lot of leftists say today on social media and in the news about, it's a father's love. It's a father's love. Hunter was going through some stuff, and we really need to be compassionate.
What do you think the biggest misconception is about the Hunter Biden case?
That he committed this felony tax conduct while he was high on drugs and he was out of his mind and he wasn't. It's not true. He actually filed these false tax returns when he admitted in his book that he was newly sober. So all of this conduct, if you look at the book compared to what's filed on the tax returns, when you compare those two things, they don't match up.
That's a fact. And people don't talk about this, right? And again, if it was just about the tax conduct, it would have been specific to the tax conduct and not go back 11 years when the statute of limitations for tax charges is only 6. Now, here is a compilation of all of the denials, just a little flavor of all the times Biden and his team members and his water carriers denied that a pardon for Hunter was forthcoming.
Will the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear and I said no.
Your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there?
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead.
She said no.
I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And you've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no.
Have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
I mean, pretty obvious what that is. A lot of folks on the left, and even some people stupidly on the right going, I can't believe he lied. Of course he lied. He's a liar. He's a complete fabulist. Joe Biden is you can't just blame the dementia. He has always been a person of suspect character. So here was today, Karine Jean-Pierre on Air Force One. This is just audio. There's no video here. Here is Karine Jean-Pierre getting asked about this. So you kept telling us it was a no. How did it become a yes?
You have said repeatedly yourself since the election, the president has said for months, no pardon was coming. I wanted to ask you, could those statements now be seen as lies from the American people? Is there really a credibility issue here given now this announcement?
First of all, one of the things that the president always believes is to be truthful to the American people. That is something that he always truly believes. And if you see the end of his, I assume that you've read his statement, and you look at the end of that statement, and he actually says that in the first line in the last paragraph, and respects the thinking and how the American people will actually see this in his decision making. And I would encourage everyone to read in full the president's statement. I think he lays out his thought process. He lays out how he came to this decision. He came to this decision this weekend. So let's be very clear about that. He says it himself. It's in his voice. He said he came to this decision this weekend. And he said he wrestled with this. And because he believes in the justice system, but he also believes that the war politics infected the process and led to a miscarriage of justice.
Well, I'll tell you, you flat out lied, and just because the comms team wrote a statement for Joe Biden and they're now redirecting the public to the statement that they read doesn't make the lie any less of a falsehood. So the same reporter then asked Karine Jean-Pierre on Air Force One, again, we don't have any video here, this is just audio, asked Karine Jean-Pierre if the any kind of maybe commutations or pardons will be afforded to the January 6th prisoners. After all, they themselves have been the subject of, one might say, political persecution of the type that Joe insists Hunter was subjected to.
President-elect Trump has likened this to the case of the so-called January 6thers, the people who are imprisoned because of their role in January 6th. What do you think of that argument? And do you think that that's a fair parallel that he believes he should think?
Today I'm going to talk about the pardon. We've been very clear about January 6th. The president has been clear about that. He's spoken to that many times before. What we believe in this particular case is what is unprecedented is the way that his son was singled out.
It's all about protecting the Bidens. And what is, by the way, very despicable is if you follow what's going on in D.C. in these J6 cases, they are speeding up lengthy and horrendous prison sentences for January 6th protesters, for people who have been they're charged with misdemeanors, and then they're still using the prohibited enhancement, the felony enhancement that comes from the Enron-inspired code section in federal law, the records enhancement that is amplifying these misdemeanors into felonies. They're violating federal law. They're going against these judges and these prosecutors, against what the Supreme Court has said. And they're intending to inflict maximum pain on people that supported Donald Trump on January 6th. And by the way, more importantly, I'll tell you, Kash Patel going to the FBI, this is a huge development. Obviously, I think a tremendous pick. Trump is, that's a hit out of the park. And every single one of these prosecutors, every single one of these investigators, every judge that is signing off on these handing down sentences that are egregiously unconstitutional in the final hours that these lunatics are in power. I hope and pray that everybody is held accountable. By the way, this is why when you look to why the media is freaking out and the establishment's freaking out about Kash Patel, and this pardon came down, 3 days after Kash was announced as Trump's nominee, or 4 days. You got to wonder almost if there's some correlation there. By the way, I'm just going to play this here because it's fabulous. Kash Patel, back in September on the Sean Ryan show, talking about what he would do with the Hoover building, with the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C.
The FBI's footprint has gotten so freaking big. And the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and drug dealers and violent offenders. What do you need 7,000 people there for? Same thing with DOJ. What are all these people doing here? Looking for their next government promotion, looking for their next fancy government title, looking for their parachute out of government. So while you're bringing in the right people, you also have to shrink government.
And the problem is, by the way, it's worse than just a bloated government bureaucracy. They're all inside the Beltway. They're all inside DC. They're all dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, liberals, pro-Biden, pro-Kamala, pro-whoever it is there that's part of their party. And they were perfectly willing to sacrifice whatever integrity that they came into the jobs with. And I presume they had some, right? I have to think that at some point, if you're joining the FBI, young idealistic person, that you're a lawyer in particular, you go to law school, you think you're going to help the Constitution, you're going to stand up for real democracy, right? Not the kind that the libs talk about. Support the United States of America, help the weak. That these people came in with some idealism, with some integrity, with some values. And this machine that is Washington, D.C., that is the Department of Justice, that is the FBI, in particular, charged with dispensing justice evenly, has become a political shock troop of the Democratic Party. And that is not acceptable. And I hope these people are held to account. So, I saw, McCabe was freaking out. By the way, the other component of all this, and I have to say, very excited for January 20th. Donaldus Maximus will become president of the United States. We are, let's see here, we're 49 days away. 49 days away. Donald Trump already solving problems in the world. Did you see his statement on the hostages? Today on Truth Social, Donald Trump put out a statement on the Hamas hostages being held in Israel. Let me summarize it. Hello, Hamas. Release the hostages now. Because if there is a single hostage still in captivity on January 20th, you will suffer consequences like you cannot even imagine. The entire weight and power of the United States of America will come down on you. Life as you know it is over. Literally. Now that's I'm just paraphrasing, okay? The left is melting. Now, you can't say things like that over Twitter. And I'm thinking, where the hell was his statement for the past, year and a half from Joe Biden? Where was this? Starting in October of last year, Joe Biden could have said exactly that. You free those hostages or we will bomb the living F's out of you. But no. He had an election to win. And to win that election, he didn't want to alienate the pro-Hamas people in the Democratic Party. And here we are now. People have died because of it. A war has dragged on. Innocents have lost their lives on both sides. All because Biden dithered for political points. It all flows into and from around the Hunter Biden pardon. Any pretension that Biden is somehow a dignified and morally superior man, politician, is just that. A complete pretension. A complete falsehood. He is a despicable cretin. So the sooner we get this clown out of office, the better. I'm saying this is all so absolutely critical that we get beyond this. Now, I'll get to the border stuff tomorrow, Robbie. We'll get to that then. Lots of developments there because Trump intends to hit the ground running as well. Homan is, he's just ready to He'll arrest mayors. He'll arrest governors if he needs to. He's not going to take any prisoners. I can't wait for that fat governor of Illinois, Pritzker, that billionaire idiot. I'm not going to protect the illegals. I cannot wait. You're going to have to double handcuff him. Like those seatbelt extenders. They've got those double handcuffs because he won't be able to fit his hands behind his back. That little porkosaurus. They're going to hog tie him and drag him out of the governor's mansion. I cannot wait. Friends, buckle up. It's going to be a hell of a 2025. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. KXNT, What's Right on the Go, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234. My email, sam@samandashlaw.com. Again, look forward to being back in the office at the studio on Thursday. And in the meantime, I'm sorry, this is going to be as good as it gets.